Okay, I'm back again, Uncle Andy. Right, more on the Lightroom Dehaze filter. Okay, so we saw how it didn't work too well on this particular image here because of the excessive damage it sort of, if you like, did to the edges of the fine detail on this shot of Wilver nuclear power station on the island of Anglesey. But I did say it had got its uses, so we'll skip over to another image here. Totally different thing going on, and basically we've got a shot here. Yes, it's a whitetail seagull. Come on, get zoomed out. And it's a whitetail seagull. It's coming to snatch a food item out of the sea, and it's shot with a 200-400mm lens on a Nikon D4, and yeah, lighting conditions are quite awkward and very, very contrasty. I mean, this image is slightly cropped, but if I just go and reset settings, you will actually see how it comes out on the back of the camera, and you can tell it's massively contrasty, direct side light, sunlight, and really awful. And you've got to underexpose the image overall just in order to keep the highlights in the areas of the bird's feet and the glossiness of the beak, etc, etc. And so basically it's had to be push process sort of thing. And if I just come back to here, and there you can see that's the cropped image, etc, etc, and it's alright, it'll do. Now, just as a quick tweak, if I go back to the Dehaze filter, you see how overall it's looked fairly flat, because what we've done is we've switched it out to a camera neutral profile, which drops the contrast, and then we've added a tiny bit of exposure, well, tiny bit, nearly 3/4 of a stop, but then we've been battling away with the contrast. We've taken 18 of contrast out, then we've taken 23 out the highlights and up the shadows by +3. And so basically all those adjustments are there just to help get contrast under control. And then what we need to do is we just need to add a little tiny bit of punch to this image. So if we scroll down to the bottom of the effects panel, and I grab the Dehaze slider and I move it a little bit over to the right, let's go for sort of 30, 31, and now you can see it's made the world of difference to the image. It's thrown some light under here. If I take that out, yeah, it's thrown some a little bit more light under here, in the fact that it's basically made the darker tones go a little bit darker and left the lighter tones alone, and it just adds just that little tiny bit of punch to the image, which if you're in a hurry and you get, you know, you're getting through sort of 400, 500, 600 images, and they are fairly low contrast images by the time you finish processing them. In other words, they've started out as high contrast images, I should say, but they've got this sort of particular histogram where we haven't got a lot over here in the sort of top 50% of the histogram. You'll find that the Dehaze filter or Dehaze adjustment, Dehaze effect slider, call it what you like, will bring something to the table to facilitate quick processing of a half decent looking image. Now if we switch over to a landscape image, rather like this, and yeah, this is just one of my test images. I shot this up at Bleetarn when I got a client with me, and we're just discussing various things about the landscape and camera positions, etc. And we were both going to do the shots here with 10 stop ND filters in, just to get rid of all this blooming ripply effect of the breeze on the water, etc, etc. But obviously this isn't a decently shot landscape because the camera isn't in the right place, because of all this malarkey hanging around and sort of hanging out the side of the image. But anyway, it goes to serve a point. It's fairly flat. It's been exposed to the right as far as we can go. But let's just try this dehaze slider again, because it is hazy. It's shot the sun's over here, yeah, as you can tell from the directions of the shadows, but obviously there is some haze here, and these mountains do look to the naked eye a heck of a lot better than they do there, as does the sky. The sky is full of haze and not flare across the camera, but it's because the light is so directional and it's coming perpendicular to the lens axis, and it has a wide angle lens as well, and it just sort of makes the image look a bit wishy-washy. So if we go and move the dehaze slider over to the right hand side, now it's throwing an awful lot of more detail into the sky here, and it's sort of adding clarity to the sky, if you like, but it's certainly made a big increase in the quality of the image here, but I don't like what's going on here. So what we could do is we could go and get a graduated filter, and then we could bring that graduated filter up there, and don't knock any whites out of it at the minute, but what we could do is drop the contrast a little bit, okay, and then change the white balance and make it go a little bit cooler. So there we go. There we've got a fairly punchy, fairly pokey image using that dehaze slider, and tell I've just got all sorts of bits and bobs going on there. But if I go and click done on that and then come up into the right up into the skyline, we can see it's not done quite such a bad job of keeping these fairly distinct edges of the skyline. So, you know, I mean, it's got a lot going for it, the dehaze slider has, or the dehaze adjustment, in so much as it speeds up your workflow. What we could do also is make use of Photoshop, and if we just bring that to its imported settings again, no, back to where I'd taken the dehaze filter off in the first place, we could then add the dehaze back in, okay, yeah, and then what we could do is we could go to photo and create a virtual copy from that, and then come back to the original one and take that dehaze filter off, then select both of these, and I'll go to there we go, edit as layers in Photoshop. Boom, ba boom, boom, boom. Whoa! Now we're waiting for Photoshop to open, and wait for Photoshop to put those two images into a stack. Come on, you can do it. Nearly there. Ooh, come on. There we go. And then this is our unadjusted image, and that's our adjusted image with the dehaze filter. So if I put those two on there, and then I come and add a mask to this top one, and then make sure I'm running from black in my foreground to white in my background, go and get a grad filter tool, well, gradient fill tool I should say, and what we'll do is we'll probably start there and come down to about there, and there we go, sorted. So now we've got our background affected by the dehaze filter to get the nice effect, but we brought the foreground under control as well, so we can just blend an adjusted and an unadjusted image together. Okay, so if we now go to quit Photoshop CC, don't save that, and then we go and have a look at this image, which I suppose in a way will be the class distinction image to illustrate the use of the dehaze filter. Yeah, right. Now, what can we say? It's a low contrast image. Yes, of course it is. But let's get down to it. The dehaze filter, I suppose it does what it says on the tin. It removes haze. It dehazes an image. You've got to ask yourself, does this image want dehazing? because at the end of the day it adds visual depth. Yeah, the contrast and everything else about the image is fading into the distance, so it gives it visual depth. But anyway, let's just see exactly what the dehaze filter does here. And so we'll go and grab the slider and we'll move it up. Yeah, and yeah, we're still keeping that visual depth. Yeah, the relationship between the near tree and the far tree. We're adding a bit more punch, a bit more clout to the tree, to both trees in actual fact. But we're still keeping the same spatial distance. But dear, what can I say? Where's all this false colour coming from? We've got false colour there, we've got false colour over here, and you'll also notice we've got all sorts of little sensor imperfections showing up over here as well. And plus the bottom of the image has gone awful. And you know, I suppose we could go into our HSL Colour BW and go for luminance and turn up the luminance of the greens to lighten the image back up again. But you notice how everything's ramped up and it's pretty shocking. Can we get rid of some of the false colour by dropping the saturation of the aquas and the blues? Yeah, but you know, we don't get rid of the sensor imperfections, and you can't get rid of them in Lightroom. We could very easily get rid of them in Photoshop with some very simple retouching techniques, but it's just a gross adjustment to the image overall. And I mean, to be quite honest with you, if I was going to actually make any adjustments to this image, I'm going to just take that back to normal. Whoops, a daisy, import. There we go. Whew, that's better. If I was going to do any sort of adjustment to this image, I might go up to the basics panel and I might go to improve clarity. Okay, somewhat like that. I might drop the blacks just to get a bit more definition in the tree. I might even go so far as to up the contrast. Yeah. So now we've got a lot more definition in the tree, but we're not generating anywhere near the amount of negative effects on the image and all that artifacting and God alone knows what else that was going on in this mist or fog bank. And the image is just a lot more subtle. Yeah, we could then come back down to the HSL box. We could take up the saturation of the greens, yeah, and we could go to luminance and we could lift the luminance of the greens. And now we're getting somewhere with the image. We could then go and get a graduated filter and we could bring that up and then just go and lift the exposure just a little tiny bit, not too much, probably a little bit more than that. Increase the spread on the effect and maybe just drop the contrast a little bit. And there you go. And I mean, it's, oh god, there's 1,001 ways of skinning the cat inside any image processing application, Lightroom included. And well, you know, I mean, I would much rather do this where I've got more control. Do it this way, I should say, where I've got more control over what I'm doing. We've also got this really cute thing inside of Lightroom now, where on our graduated filters and on our radial filters and on the brush, we can actually adjust the white and black points of the filters. So what we could do with this graduated filter still active, we can actually boost the white point of the image and just add more light to it, the image, the filter I should say. So we're just making alterations to this part of the image, in other words the foreground, and we could go and increase the contrast by dropping the black point. And you know, wow, You know, if this is looking a little bit oversaturated, we could then come back and just drop the saturation just a little tiny bit. And now what we've done is we've increased the punch of the image and clarity of the image overall, and we've got even more visual depth from this foreground out to past this tree. So, you know, the effect that was being generated in the original image straight off the back of the camera has been emphasised, but it hasn't been changed, which is something that I find this dehaze filter tends to do. And when we come to subtle colours, subtle tones and visual effects, to me it has a tendency to sort of change the spatial separation in the images, and it's not something I'm really keen on. So yeah, on the sea eagle image it's a boon. On this sort of an image, sometimes I find it just a little bit more trouble than it's worth, even though it is just a simple slider, because then we've got to do such a lot of counter adjustments to balance out the negative effects of it. So the last image I want to look at is this one. And yeah, this is just a really slow shutter speed on a breezy autumn day. There's some nice coloured silver birches at the side of a lake, and the wind's just blown them all over the place. I can't remember what the length of exposure was. Let's just go and have a check. Drop the metadata down. Yes, 1.8 seconds at f20. I mean, yes, you can use f20 because it's a motion blurred shot, so there's not going to be any sharp detail in it, so we can get away with any amount of diffraction, but we digress. So overall the image is very hazy, very wishy-washy, etc, etc, and also flat. Right, so let's come down to the dehaze filter again, and let's see what the dehaze filter does. Yeah, oh dear, it's showing up the dust spots, but well, never mind, we're not here to talk about dust spotting. Yeah, it's certainly put us in the right direction, but it's not really something I'm enjoying a great deal. Whereas if I knock the amount down, and what can we do? Let's go and put up the contrast of the image. Yeah, now we've increased the definition of the image, but we haven't made it go any darker. What else can we do? Let's go and use the clarity slider, and now we can bring a boatload of detail out of it. Yeah, now let's go and up the saturation of the image, and let's get some colour going. And yeah, it's a bit much that. But we'll leave it where it is and go see if we can rescue it somewhere else. Let's lift up the luminance of the true yellows. Yeah, there we go. So lift up the oranges a little bit. And then I think when we come to the saturation, we'll go and increase the saturation of the greens, just to emphasise these bits and bobs down here. And we'll also increase the saturation of the oranges. And if there's any reds on the go in there, and some yellows. Yeah, that's looking quite nice. And then if we go and drop the overall exposure a little bit, not too much. Now we sort of get into the black point to white point density range that we were obtaining with the dehaze filter. But if I just go and make a duplicate of this image, virtual copy, and we'll just go reset on that virtual copy and come back down to the, where's it gone, dehaze filter again, you know, and then we just go and hold down the shift key, select those two images, go back to the library, and go back to a compare view. I actually prefer which one's which. That's right, I actually prefer this image here, which is done the more conventional way, to this image here, which is done with the clarity slider. Why do I prefer it? Well, it's basically because we've obtained the image through more precise controls, and the image on the right hand side, this one here, is done just straight away with the dehaze filter and nothing else. And yeah, I suppose it gets you there, but it's just a little bit too stark for me. I don't know how other folks will get on with this dehaze filter. I get on with it all right. It's got its uses, but I suppose because I've been at this game so long, I know how to produce the effects in other ways. That's you know, generally the methodology behind the adjustments that the other adjustments that I'd make has just got a little bit more going for it, because it's a bit more precise and a bit more controlled. So anyway, there you go. That's my take on the dehaze filter. It's got its uses. I find I use it more on images that you wouldn't really think it was designed to be used on. These are this sort of image here, and it just does speed up your workflow. Just adding just that little touch of a dehaze filter to an image that hasn't really got a lot of an excessive dynamic range all across the image. It's just fairly localized. You know, most any sort of long telephoto, wildlife or subject shot would fall into that category, I suppose. And you know, it's got its uses. It's got its uses. But I mean, to be quite honest with you, for images of this sort or this sort or this sort, not that one because that's done with the dehaze filter. Ooh, or this. Oh, I know what we'll just do to this image, just to finish it off. We'll go into the develop module, and see, it's got a load of noise in it, because that's what we're starting to generate, noise. I mean, basically, as soon as it's a motion blurred image, we just very simply go into the details panel, and you know, you might want to sharpen the bejesus out of it, and then stick a boatload of noise reduction in, and there we go. End of story. Right, so that's it. But what I was saying was, you know, for an image like this, where we've got lots and lots of sharp, fine detail done with a wide angle lens, and for general landscaping in general, if I find I'm going to have rather a convoluted workflow in Lightroom, I will go for a really superb third-party plugin, which is Topaz Clarity, and I'll put a link into Topaz Clarity at the bottom of this on my blog post. And I just love Topaz Clarity because you've just got so much choice of adjustment and so much finite control, and you know, it's not exactly one of Topaz's most expensive plugins. And like I say, if you're watching this on my blog, if you click the link that I'll put in the blog post below, and I'll try and put it in the YouTube, in the notes on this video as well. And then if you buy it through there, it won't cost you any more, but that means your Uncle Andy gets a little bit of money, which just helps to keep all this lot going. Okay, so there you go, my thoughts on the dehaze filter. Use inside a Lightroom and Camera Raw, useful in places, but use with caution, and there are alternative ways of skinning the cat. Okay, I'll see you soon, bye.